In 1994, the Nigerian Ministry of Education did something unprecedented. They deleted a year. If you look at the official archives for the Federal Government Girls College in Ogun State, the records jump from July 1993 to September 1995. There are no graduation photos for the class of 94. There are no national exam results. There is only a single handwritten note in a ledger in Ibadan that reads, SITE-44, decommissioned due to structural instability. But concrete doesn't cause 300 girls to forget how to speak. This is the recovered archive of Simisola Simi Adeyemi. Simi wasn't a ghost hunter. She was a student journalist with a high 8 camcorder and a fixation on a sound. On October 14th, 1994, Simi vanished from the infirmary of Ward 4. 3 days later, her camera was found sitting in the center of the assembly ground. It was still recording. What the St. Jude's tapes, as they are colloquially known, reveal isn't just a haunting. It is the documentation of a parasite of rhythm. To understand Ward 4, you have to understand the Silent Grove. Long before the British poured the foundation for the school in 1952, the local villagers avoided this specific patch of forest. They called it the place where the earth repeats itself. In 1951, a colonial surveyor named Arthur Sterling wrote in his private diary that the echoes in the grove were chronologically displaced. He claimed that if you dropped a stone, you would hear it hit the ground 3 minutes before you let go. The school was built directly on top of this displacement. The legend of Madame Koikoi, the high-heeled ghost of a vindictive teacher, is told in every boarding school in West Africa. It's a campfire story, but in Simi's tapes, we see the terrifying transition from myth to mechanical fact. In tape 1, dated September 12th, 1994, Simi is filming a boring documentary about the school's failing infrastructure. She's in the senior block. The hallway is long, dimly lit by a single flickering bulb. She's joking with her roommate, Funke. Then the sound starts. Click, drag, click, drag. It's the sound of a stiletto heel on polished linoleum. But here is the anomaly. Simi pans the camera 360 degrees. The hallway is empty. The sound, however, is registering on the camera's external mic at 110 decibels, the volume of a chainsaw. Funke isn't screaming. She's counting. She's whispering. 12, 13, 14. Simi asks, "What are you counting?" Funke looks into the lens, her eyes completely bloodshot from burst capillaries. She says, "The steps don't match the distance, Simi. She's been walking for 3 minutes, but she hasn't passed us yet. She's walking in the fold." This brings us to the mirror protocol. By late September, the school administration implemented a bizarre set of rules. We have a leaked copy of the nightly directives. Rule 4 is underlined in red. No student is to look into a reflective surface after 10 p.m. All mirrors in Ward 4 are to be covered with damp newspaper. Why damp? Because, as Simi's diary suggests, the entity wasn't coming from the hallway. It was using the moisture in the air to bridge the gap between the Silent Grove and the present day. On October 2nd, Simi snuck into the infirmary, Ward 4, to find Funke, who had been quarantined for sleepwalking. What she found was the first recorded instance of structural mimicry. In the footage, the infirmary walls don't look like concrete anymore. Under the harsh beam of Simi's flashlight, the walls appear to be pulsing. The rhythmic click-drag of the heels is now perfectly synced with the flickering of the lights. Simi approaches Funke's bed. Funke is gone. In her place, sitting on the thin mattress, is a colonial-era ivory prosthetic leg. It is yellowed, cracked, and vibrating so violently that it has worn a hole through the bedsheet. Simi's voice is heard shaking. She doesn't run. She leans in close to the ivory. She whispers, "Is this you, madam?" The audio on the tape cuts to pure white noise for exactly 7 seconds. When it returns, Simi is no longer in the infirmary. She is standing in a forest, but it's a forest made of grey, calcified lockers. The trees have handles. The leaves are pages from old school ledgers. This was the re-emergence of the Silent Grove. The school wasn't being haunted, it was being digested. The final tape, the one found on the assembly ground, is the most controversial piece of analog horror in existence. It is 40 minutes of a single, static shot of the Ward 4 entrance. For the first 39 minutes, nothing happens. Then, at 3 a.m., the doors don't open. They unfold. They peel back like skin. And out of the opening walks Simi. But she is wearing the uniform of a 1950s schoolgirl. She is carrying the ivory prosthetic. She walks to the center of the frame, looks directly into the lens, and performs a curtsy. As she bends her knees, the sound of 1,000 high heels hitting the pavement at once shatters the camera's lens. The screen goes black. Investigators who studied the Simi tape in the early 2000s noticed a detail in the background that was previously missed. In the reflection of the Ward 4 windows, you can see the entire student body of 1994. They aren't dead. They are sitting at their desks in a classroom that shouldn't exist, waiting for a lesson that never ends. The Ministry of Education didn't delete the year because of a tragedy. They deleted it because the class of 94 is still in session. And if you listen closely to the static at the end of the tape, you can hear the attendance being called. Adiemi, Simisola, present. Okonjo, Funke, present. The rhythm is still keeping time. The grove is still silent. And Ward 4 is still waiting for the next student to look in the mirror. If the 1994 disappearance was the outbreak, then 1991 was the incubation. Buried in a rusted filing cabinet in a decommissioned wing of the Ministry of Works, investigators found a series of structural surveys for the Federal Government Girls' College, dated 3 years before Simi Adeyemi ever turned on her camera. These weren't reports about cracked foundations or leaking pipes. They were acoustic maps. The surveyors weren't measuring the strength of the concrete. They were measuring its pulse. According to the 1991 purge documents, the school began experiencing what was termed auditory overlap. Students in the junior block would hear lessons being taught in the senior block, not through the walls, but as if the two rooms were occupying the same physical coordinates. By mid-November 1991, the overlap turned physical. In a leaked memo titled, "Subject, Ward 4 Plumbing Anomalies," a maintenance officer reported that the U-bends in the infirmary sinks were being clogged by an organic, ivory-like calcification. When the pipes were cut open, they didn't find lime or rust. They found human fingernails. Thousands of them fused together into the shape of a spiral. This is where the legend of Madame Koikoi loses its supernatural charm and becomes a matter of biological horror. Let's look at tape 4, the mirror logs, dated October 5th, 1994. In this footage, Simi has bypassed the prefect's guard and entered the forbidden bathroom in the east wing. The mirrors are still covered in damp, grey newspaper, just as the protocol demanded. Simi, driven by that fatal journalistic curiosity, reaches out. She peels back a corner of the paper. The camera lens is inches from the glass, but we don't see Simi's reflection. We see a hallway that looks like the school, but the lighting is inverted. The shadows are white, and the highlights are pitch black. In this reflection, the silent grove is fully visible through the windows. The trees aren't wood. They are giant, petrified columns of braided hair. And then we hear it, the click drag. But on the tape, the sound doesn't come from the hallway behind Simi. It comes from inside the mirror. Simi whispers. She isn't walking on the floor. The camera tilts down. In the reflection, we see the entity. It isn't a woman in a red dress. It is a colonial-era silhouette, elongated and flickering like a dying bulb. It is walking on the ceiling of the reflected world. Every time its heel strikes the ceiling, a crack appears in the real-world mirror Simi is holding. The koi koi sound isn't the sound of a shoe. It is the sound of reality, fracturing under the weight of an impossible mass. To understand the ivory prosthetic found in Funke's bed, we have to look at the 1952 construction logs. The school was funded by a grant from the Sterling Thorne Foundation. Arthur Sterling, the surveyor who vanished in the grove, had a daughter who served as the school's first headmistress. She was a woman known for her metronomic discipline. She lost her leg in a carriage accident in 1948 and replaced it with a custom-carved ivory limb. The school wasn't just built on the grove. It was built as a tuning fork. By October 8, 1994, the frequency had reached a terminal state. Simi's diary entries become illegible, replaced by hundreds of hand-drawn spirals that look remarkably like the fingernail clogs found in the pipes. Her final written sentence is a warning that the Nigerian government has spent 30 years trying to suppress. The school is not a building, it is a mouth, and it only eats when we all walk in step. This leads us to the assembly ground incident. On the morning of October 10th, 3 days before the disappearance, the school's generator failed. Total darkness. In the silence, the entire student body, all 300 girls, marched to the assembly ground in perfect rhythmic synchronization. They didn't speak. They didn't pray. They stood in the heat of the Ogun sun and began to hum a single note, 440 hertz, the standard A note used to tune a piano. As they hummed, the windows of Ward 4 began to liquefy. The glass didn't shatter. It turned into a viscous silver liquid that flowed upward, defying gravity, towards the sky. In Simi's final footage of this event, she pans the camera up. The sun isn't a circle anymore. It has been folded into a square. The class of '94 wasn't taken. They were tuned. If you visit the ruins of the Federal Government Girls College today, you won't find a ghost. You will find a radio silent zone. The Ogun state government officially condemned the site in 1996, citing unstable soil and methane pockets. They erected a 12-foot concrete wall topped with electrified wire. But they didn't build the wall to keep people out. They built it to keep the rhythm in. In January 2026, a drone piloted by an urban explorer bypassed the perimeter. The footage it captured has never been officially released, but leaked frames show a Ward 4 that has physically matured. The concrete has been replaced by a substance that resembles calcified bone. The windows are no longer empty. They have scabbed over with a layer of mirrors. But the most disturbing discovery wasn't the building. It was the audio. When the drone hovered over the assembly ground, its high-fidelity microphone picked up a sound that shouldn't exist. The sound of 300 voices reciting the Lord's Prayer in a perfect 3-second delay. It wasn't a recording. It was a spatial echo that has been looping for 32 years, gaining mass with every repetition. This brings us to the final transmission of Simisola Adeyemi. Tape 7, found in the dirt, was damaged by moisture, but digital restoration in 2024 revealed the last 3 minutes of Simi's life. She's inside the mirror world of Ward 4. The physics are gone. She's walking on a floor made of teeth, and the ceiling is a vast, open sky of flickering static. She finds the class of '94. They aren't corpses. They are sitting in their desks, their skin the color of polished ivory. They are all writing in their notebooks. with pens made of their own sharpened finger bones. Simi approaches the front of the room. The headmistress is there, the woman with the ivory leg. But she isn't a woman anymore. She's a geometric stack of mirrors in the shape of a human. Every time she moves, the click-drag sound tears the audio of the tape. The headmistress turns to Simi. We don't hear words. We hear a frequency that translates directly into the viewer's inner ear. You are late, Simisola. The lesson is about the square of the sun. Simi sets the camera down. She sits at an empty desk. As she picks up a bone pen, her own skin begins to turn white. She looks into the camera one last time. Her eyes aren't eyes. They are shards of glass. She whispers, "It doesn't hurt to be a reflection. It only hurts to be the person who isn't there." The obituary ends with a 2026 satellite thermal scan of the Ogun site. The scan shows 300 distinct heat signatures inside the ruins. They aren't moving. They are arranged in a perfect, pulsating spiral that expands by 1 inch every year. At this rate, the Silent Grove will reach the outskirts of Lagos by 2045. The class of '94 isn't waiting for a rescue. They are waiting for the rest of us to join the rhythm. Because in the geometry of Ward 4, there are no individuals. There is only the sequence. There is only the click. There is only the drag. And somewhere, in a basement in Ibadan, a mirror is starting to pulse.